Hello and welcome to Upstage Downstage.
With me, Richard Platt, seated in the upper circle.
And me, Stephen Rees, seated in a cheap seat. This is the Theatre Podcast, where we discuss productions we've seen, things we've liked and may not have liked, giving our complete unprofessional and non-biased opinions.
So grab a brew, take a seat and let's raise that curtain. On today's episode, we'll be discussing Mousetrap. We saw this production at the Theatre Royal Nottingham on the 27th of September 2022. Agatha Christie's The Mousetrap is the world's longest running play. Now celebrating 70 years, this thrilling West End production is the genre-defining murder mystery from the best-selling novelist of all time. So Stephen, what's it all about?
As news spreads of a murder in London, a group of 7 strangers find themselves snowed in at a remote countryside guest house. When a police sergeant arrives, the guests discover, to their horror, that a killer is in their midst. Which one is the murderer? Who will be their next victim?
But first, our post-show opinion!
Terribly exciting, what?
Captivating and timeless. So with all that said, let's
Set the scene.
set it.
Set the scene!
So, Richard, the 70th anniversary tour of Agatha Christie's The Mousetrap.
Yes.
Set the scene! Dare we?
Can we
Yes,
talk about it?
I think we can. We can't reveal
Can we
too
then?
much about
No.
the play.
Well, I mean,
On
I
pain
suppose
of death.
when we sat down in our seats and looked at the stage, the curtain was shut. So we've seen quite a few recently where everything's been shut, the curtains have been down. So you don't know anything until the actual... I suppose one thing we can say
They're
is...
stopping people like us revealing everything.
Everything, yeah, exactly.
Rude.
But what I will say is this is a very traditional style of
Play.
theatre. It's a traditional play.
Yeah.
You can tell it's been going for a long time. So the actual set is all set in one room. It's basically like an enhanced living room. So when the curtains open, you're almost in the reception
it's a
room.
manor hall, isn't it?
So it's like you'd expect a grand manor hall with a big reception area, really, almost.
And that's what we got.
Yeah, with different doors off to upstairs to the sort of dining room and almost the billiard room, or it felt very Cluedo. It felt very steeped in that history.
Yes, it had that pseudo grand manor.
Yes, yeah.
Murder mystery.
And also one thing I suppose I've got to say is the set is designed in such a way where it's not perfectly centred on stage. There's a lot of angles on this set, so it's actually almost turned round. So it's when you look at the set, it looks a little bit more intriguing than just a set that's a few doors with a back wall and some side walls. They've made a lot of effort in creating high panelled walled ceilings, so you feel like all the panelled walls all the way go up all the way to the top, and you feel like there's a grandeur. It feels like a manor.
You could say it was a bit of a crooked house if you wanted to
Yeah.
give a bit of an Agatha Christie reference.
Yeah.
What I quite liked about it was the amount of detail that went into the set, especially the oak panels on the walls. There were some fine detailing that went all the way around the upstage exits and entrances. Well, there were sort of like archways towards... One was a staircase, and the other was probably to the kitchen and a hallway, or the main door.
Yes.
But that detailing carried on around the fireplace and up over a lot of the walls.
There's a big imposing window within the back of the set.
Yeah.
Which has got 2 big full-length velour from floor all the way up to the almost ceiling curtains.
With just a little radiator underneath.
And the window behind that was ornate, and it's got a lot of stained glass in it, and it feels very of that
lined.
lead lined and everything. So they've gone to so much detail in that you feel even the furniture that's used, it all feels slap bang in the right period,
Yeah.
And all the knickknacks and things on the fireplace, it's definitely a bull in a china shop place where you don't want to be breaking a lot of them, because there's quite a lot on there.
It sort of just summed up what a really nice stage can be.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we've seen quite a lot of bare stage sets where they just wheel things on, wheel things off for ease, or things that are come down from the rafters, or you even get a lot of sets which have so much technical details come in. But it was quite nice and quite relaxing just to see a simple set
Yeah,
and
exactly.
have the actors act within that little world.
Yeah, and I think
which didn't rely on special technical details, just probably like a string on just a window on a
just
string,
to
just
keep it
pulling
open
it to keep
and
it
shutting.
open, and just the minute little
exactly.
effects and details and stuff.
I think this is a classic example. It's classic, but it's an example of.
Is it a classic example?
It's a classic example.
Or an
It's a
example
bit like
of a
journey.
classic?
But no, it's an example that
It's classic.
I think some people have too much choice and options nowadays when it comes to designing a set or designing things. They can throw everything at it, and
do you think they're trying too hard to think outside the box when
Yeah.
sometimes it's okay to be in the box?
But that's the whole point is sometimes that's the whole point of a theatre production. If it can't stand up on its own in that box or that space on stage, you shouldn't need to create loads of other things. And I think that's key sometimes.
Now, whilst we are discussing that, bearing in mind the
Yes.
70th anniversary, has this setting always been it for 70 years?
As far as I'm aware, yes.
Okay, so no one else would have, I suppose they wouldn't have had the rights, would they?
No,
Amateur
I think
things?
the whole point of this is it's been one of those that's been locked away in.
Locked
It
away
can
in
only be done as a
perpetuity.
professional. You can't do it.
Because would you have wanted to have seen this in a contemporary style setting, set-wise, basically?
That's an interesting one because I think it
Or
could
bare
work
stage.
if they turned it into a lavish set that was almost minimalist, then it could have worked the same.
Could it?
But,
yeah.
It's almost timeless in a way.
Because just going on to the writing, we're hinting that way, but it slightly verged on a bit of a farce, with
Yes.
all the doors and stuff.
Yeah,
and comings and going, but it didn't go too farcical.
No.
Like a proper farce, and it neither did it go in terms of like Cluedo.
No, exactly.
That was
But it
slightly
got the
farce.
humour in it
Yeah.
that you wouldn't just expect everything to be doom and gloom in something like this. And I think that, so it did have those comic elements in it to almost give away things but still be funny and, as part of it, because it wouldn't have been as good a production, I don't think, if it hadn't have got those moments.
Yeah.
I think it needed that in it. Because even in murder mysteries, in Midsummer Murders, things like that, there's hints of comedy or there's hints of things that are the jovial parts of it because it's not all doom and gloom and it's,
Well, it is a case of mystery. That's what
it is.
That's where the genre came from, really. I suppose the
Yeah.
golden age and Agatha Christie being that.
And I think one thing to mention here before we move on to anything else is the Mousetrap actually debuted at Nottingham Theatre Royal.
Yes.
70 years ago. So before it transferred to London, a bit
Where
like
it
other
still
productions, where it
remains.
still remains and it's still running, it actually debuted here. So up in Nottingham. So I think
And is it the only time where it actually stopped producing was during the pandemic?
I think so, yeah. That was the only time it stopped. And I think it's quite interesting because it's been going a long time now and other productions haven't lived this long or they haven't lived out their writing because of the age of them or...
I suppose Blood Brothers is probably the next close one because that's the longest running musical, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah,
It's the second or this.
Yeah, it's in that realm. Yeah.
It, yeah. What about the direction for the play we saw?
I mean, for me, the direction was brilliant because it didn't stop.
Yeah.
You could tell that everybody knew their place and some of the things were so slight that I don't think that you would have noticed that it was direction, but it was there for a purpose. There was certain little things or ways that they walked round things. They went the long way, which is how I sort of think some theatre should be done. If you're walking from one place to another, it looks less natural if you just go a shortcut, because that's not making more of you as a character. You actually just get into another location on stage because you need to. Whereas there was a lot of they made the most of the stage and the space. You could.
In other words, it gives the actor thinking time for the next line.
Yeah. yeah. But it draws focus as they're walking across, and you know that they're going for a purpose rather than it being, oh, I'll just stand there or I'll just stand there. And I think,
suppose it just depends in that kind of view, because if you want them to take focus and to be seen to be walking, then you'd take the long route. But if it was just like a background thing and didn't want to upstage, then they might go a shorter route. If they were like going to a drinks cabinet or whatever, then they wouldn't go all around the houses.
No, of course not. But it was little things like that bit where he kept knocking the lampshade over.
Well,
he didn't just go the short way. He went all the way round and he did it again, and it went on, and it just made it. That gives you those elements, the funny elements.
But was that scripted?
But there's also a lamp on there as well, So
Well, I'm not saying that they didn't knock it off on that one either as well, but I think it's more of a faux pas, that one. The fact that
she knocked it over though.
Well, it fell onto the sofa when she was there, and then he knocked it over. Had it been done a third time, then it would have been deliberate. So I think for me the direction again was spot on. So I have to agree with you on there. There wasn't any out of place movements or anything.
No, and
that
that's
just
what I
felt.
think.
You know, I mean, it's really weird when we sort of like talk about direction in this way, because we instantly look for the awkwardness or something that just looks obviously wrong, and if it doesn't feel wrong, then it is natural. So it's been directed extremely well.
And also, you mentioned dated, and I think as well, it's key to that they direct it that has every movement of that time and that period.
Of that character in that.
Yeah, and that's what you have to think about. It's not just about, you know.
But I think it's also down to the actors and how
It
they
is,
portray the characters.
Definitely.
And when Gwyneth Strong came in as Mrs. Boyle, she got that character right down to the bones of who she was. It is probably like this crabby old woman who was pretty much a spinster, but knew her mind, knew where she was in the world, and not necessarily her place, but she was like a lot of Agatha Christie's typical female
staunch
women roles of that age. In a way, she wasn't too soft or too mousy.
No,
she was quite opinionated.
Yes, of course.
Or abrupt or strong and dare I say even masculine.
Yeah, well, no,
masculine-esque.
It's almost like
it was in that period of like
it's
the
almost
20s
military.
To the 40s,
it's that sort of
it's
like military. You know, that stoutness. That's that. You know.
Yeah. So what about the writing?
I mean, I think it stands the test of time. And as we talk about it being a cosy mystery, in a way, there's so much out there that you could refer. You know, yes, there are better written thrillers or this, that, and the other in here and now.
But this is a whodunit rather than a thriller.
Yeah,
and definitely a cosy mystery, or what the subgenre has gone on to become.
But I think
now.
we forget that as well. Sometimes I have to remind myself that 70 years ago, this was the cosy mystery you went to see. There was nothing on telly. There was a radio play you'd probably hear, or this, that, and the other. But you'd go to the theatre to watch something like this.
I think of the time, the twists within it, without giving anything away for spoiler reasons, I felt a little lackluster because now benefit of everything else that I've ever watched.
Definitely.
I saw it coming a mile away.
Yeah.
And used to working out everything that's said and also not said. I got the gist of particular characters and the hidden lies or red herrings and stuff. But there's a particular twist which I thought that there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
And it's really difficult when you can't really say anything
about it. It is.
But
I think when you look at, say, I know, Line of Duty and things like that, where you watch them, and there's
a game.
No, it's a series on BBC, and basically
BBC,
there are misdirects in the same way, and they've got to have drawn reference from these type of mysteries where the person that's expected isn't the person. There's all that happening, and there's a lot of things out there, like you said. There's a lot of things that are on telly now that we've all become a bit of the super sleuth or the detective. So it's very difficult to shock and surprise, I think, anymore, because there's a lot out there that happens already. So
I have to view this, or the writing of it, in terms of when it was dated. For me to sort of give a perspective on it. And I thought the characters were, again, a typical Agatha Christie. Lock them all in a room. They all have their stereotypical characters there. It was well written.
Yeah, it was.
It kept the pace. It kept the energy. Some really good characterizations of Christopher Wren, and Miss Casewell as well. Even the introduction of Mr. Paravicini. I think I said that right.
Paravicini.
Power of Attorney.
No, Paravicini.
Paravicini.
Yeah.
Yeah, they all, well, like I say, stock characters, but they were well written, I'd say.
But I think for me, it's also the bits in the writing and the directing where when the radio was playing and it was talking about somebody's on the loose, they're wearing a hat and a scarf and a coat.
That's what I enjoyed, because it was setting it up for the very beginning of making them all suspects.
Yes, and it was really cleverly written that every time somebody new entered the room, they all had those items.
Yeah.
But if that character or that cast member who was taking the coat, the hat and the scarf didn't do it, they wouldn't have had the same moment if that hadn't have happened.
Yeah, but it was just another intro of, once you have all your suspects in one place, how do you know quickly that they're all suspects? Because someone on the radio has said the suspect that did it was wearing this, that and the other.
Yeah.
And they all were. So
Yeah.
that was a quick way of just nipping it in the bud.
Yeah,
These
exactly.
are your suspects.
Yeah. We're just going to
Now,
lay it on the line, and these are the ones.
let's have a bit of a character detail and see how they all interact, and then the midway point, kill someone off, and then who did it.
Definitely.
Because the inciting incident has already happened off set. There's already been a death. So by the midway point, there's got to be a second death.
Yes.
I was expecting a third. Well, second on stage.
Yeah.
But, is that a spoiler? Not particularly.
No.
No.
I mean,
So I was expecting...
the fourth mode surprised me.
Surprised me as well. We were sitting next to it. Anyway. No.
So
even that, the roundup of tying all the loose ends up and stuff, it put everything back into its box that it needed to do. However, I did come away feeling... okay. Although I will say I was gripped all the way through. I loved everything, but I wasn't. Wow, because the Mousetrap, you think, okay, this is really gonna be one. But I've seen witness for the prosecution.
Yeah.
And that was like, oh my god, oh my god.
Yeah.
The twists in that one.
Yeah.
So I was probably expecting more, but I didn't get that. But it doesn't mean I didn't enjoy it for what it was.
But strength in story, strength in journey, I'm use that word.
There was character.
It was all there.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a good production for that reason.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, what we saw 4 days ago in the same theatre.
Oh, didn't you? Which very much had the same typical...
Which was meant to have the same sort of... Yeah, it was meant to be a mystery.
But like I said to you whilst we were in there, I'm not sure which way around this is going to go out, but when we saw Wicked Lady, those two actors couldn't hold an audience. They couldn't hold the drama. They couldn't hold our attentions to view them. But when we saw these actors on stage, just even if it was just two of them, they held it. But that was also down to the writing.
It is,
because we wanted to know what they were talking about. I couldn't give a damn about Wicked Lady and what they were talking about. I was bored from the start.
No, this you were lost. You just lost in it. You're just like,
But this is what happens when you get, and not just a great crime novelist, crime writer.
No, exactly.
But the fact that she wrote the stage play, and sometimes it can be quite difficult to go from writing a novel to then writing a stage play, because you don't particularly know how to use all the tools in the toolbox for writing stage.
Well, you're so used to writing the story rather than the actual dialogue for the actual production.
I prefer script writing because you can just get straight to the nubbins of it.
Yeah. Do you know what we're here for?
What?
We're. I can do it.
Here for the drama.
Okay, so standout performances. I must give credit to Elliot Clay for playing Christopher Wren. The moment he bombarded the stage with his energy,
definitely.
He never stopped.
No.
It was just thrilling to watch, and it was just like flamboyant personality was just adorable. But you didn't know which way he was going to
playing the stirrer and playing that person that's just getting that wooden spoon out and just stirring things up.
Exactly. Yeah. And it was always funny.
Definitely.
He was the one that brought the jokes and brought the comedy more so out of all of them.
Yeah, definitely. Really.
Or at least a different kind of comedy. It was more like you carry on comedy.
It was, yeah.
And I'd say we'd seen Gwyneth Strong in Ladies of Letters as well this year. And to see her go from basically a normal housewife writing a letter, it was just great to see it in a different role.
Yeah, definitely.
And she certainly knocked it out of the park on this one. Not like she didn't on the other one.
No.
To be honest, they all gave a strong performance.
Yeah, they really did. All of them. There wasn't really one bad one.
It was nice to see the EastEnders cast in there as well.
Yeah, exactly.
John Altman played a great Mr. Paravicini. Yeah. No, it's not. I've done said that wrong.
Paravicini.
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 Paravicini. He was great. He added an extra flavour of the characters. But again, even Todd Carty as Major Metcalf, it felt like he was delivering a very typical major or colonel.
He was Prince Charles, King Charles. He had that.
But the thing is, it's not even that. It's more the fact that these are stock characters they're playing.
Yeah.
So they play to those roles.
Yeah.
Again, Cluedo.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very much that kind of setup. Colonel Mustard, Professor Plum.
I think also, one thing I would say, there was just a couple of moments, I think that John Altman, it may have been a direction thing, but there was a couple of moments where he did act to the audience, which I found a little strange when everybody else didn't act up to the audience. they didn't actually glance into the audience and look at them. There was a couple of lines he delivered that he looked straight at people, and I think that either that was a direction thing or it was actually... But it was nothing major, but it just felt a little bit...
No, the major was Todd Carty.
No, John Altman. I said John Altman. John Altman, yeah.
I know, you said nothing major. Come on, Richard, for God's sake.
Obviously using my listening ears. But no, there was just that little moment that I think it was just... He had a few funny lines, and it was like, I'll say these to the audience, and it's like, no... Don't say them to the audience. Still, just say them in the room and people will laugh. Don't need to break the wall.
I don't know if I picked up on that, to be honest.
I did.
Could have been many then.
It was the ones when he was leaving the room to go into another room and he was saying his final line that was like the funny bit, and there was a few moments where he was looking at the audience but not looking into the people in the room. And it was like you wouldn't look at the wall because technically that's just a wall.
Yeah.
And I think I've seen other things where they do it really well, where they look almost past you, like something we saw last night, where even though they're looking out to the audience, not really looking at the audience, but it's done.
What did you make of the costumes?
I thought they were dated. They were of the time. They
suited the period.
They suited the period,
well.
Definitely. But it's more likely when there was only wireless and a telephone, so we're talking very like early 1900s. We're not very far on. It's all very pomp and circumstance, wasn't it? A lot of it was very, very country house, very...
What was pomp and circumstance? The telephone?
No, I meant what they're wearing.
I think that was just a typical upper class...
It's country house, hotel, that
kind of era of...
Tweed, a lot of, Londoners, basically. Sorry. Oh, God.
Now for our next segment, as we say...
What the heck is this?
Now, Richard, technical stuff. Is there anything you want to pick up on?
I think this takes me back to some of the productions I used to do years ago where they were all in one room and it was very much lights up, lights down, but with working lights on stage, so the gas lights or whatever were working on stage. But that's all it needed. It was a lights on or a lights off production where...
I think they were electric lights. I don't think they were gas.
But I think
I quite like the fact that when the curtains were open, you could see the amount of snow coming down. They had
they had a snow machine the other side of the window.
And
and just a simple thing of it wasn't even technical, but like you said earlier, there was a bit of string on a window to show that the wind kept blowing it open, it was enough. I think, and there was a lot of subtlety about this whole performance where the set did itself. There was a little red light behind the flames of the fire just to show that the fire was glowing, and it's quite. And sound effects wise, there wasn't really anything apart from the odd piano playing in the background or doors shutting and things like that. But there wasn't really anything that wasn't done on stage, I'd say. It's traditional theatre, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like, just one of those where there's nothing too technical stuff that's involved in this.
No.
Because it is quite a traditional play.
Yeah.
And a traditional
well, it's reliant
layout.
on the writing and the actual performance rather than the actual technical side of it. Some things don't always need the smoke and mirrors.
No, that's another play.
They definitely...
Faux pas. The only thing that really happened was the light in the first scene.
Yeah, just the lamp kept getting knocked over. I would like to read the script to see if it was intentional or actually meant to happen, because I'm still not sure to this day.
Right then, for our Rewind Rewatch segment, what moment in this play would you like to rewind and rewatch?
My favourite bit was the bit when Christopher Wren hid in the curtains.
Oh, yeah.
And then made the people in the household jump because he hid while they were talking about something quite serious, and then he just made them all jump.
Oh, that was quite funny. Do you know what? I'm not quite sure which piece I'd like to rewatch. I'd rewatch the whole thing, but I wouldn't. I think I'd probably just have to agree with you simply because it was an amusing thing when.
I suppose the other thing for me would just be the hat, coat, and scarf moment. Because
that's another one that was quite.
I like that
fun, but that was just the setup at the very beginning.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it wasn't. Oh, shut up! That's it. I'm done.
Leave it there.
Moving on now to our next piece.
Call this a show.
Scores then, please, Richard, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being caught in a mousetrap and 1 being continuously listening to 3 blind mice played on the piano. What's it going to be?
I give it an 8 out of 10.
I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10.
Yeah.
I thought it was a great play.
Yeah.
But I knew what was coming.
Yeah. I thought it was a cosy piece of theatre, and I
Yeah.
would see it again. And I'll be intrigued in a way to see it in London, because then in a way I'd like to see it with casts that aren't well known or aren't familiar, because I would be intrigued to what it
to
actually
compare.
comes. Yeah, just to see it in that way. I know where it's going, but I think it'd just be interesting to see it as a rewatch.
So, what sound effect will you be choosing from the following? A complete train wreck? Tumbleweed? An audible shrug of the shoulders? A slow clap? A pleasant applause? Or a standing ovation? What will it be?
I'll give this one a pleasant applause, because I felt that it was a great show. Even though the ending was a little predictable, I still enjoyed it.
I'm going to give this play a pleasant applause too.
So there we are. That's our discussion of the Mousetrap. We hope you found it insightful.
If not, entertaining.
Coming up over the next few episodes, we will be discussing the best exotic marigold hotel
Dream Girls!
and South Pacific.
That's it for this week, folks.
If you'd like to drop us a message, please email us at upstagedowstagepod@gmail.com. Remember, you can always join in the chat to share with us your views on a production.
Also, make sure to like and subscribe to our channel so you get every episode the second it's released. And we hope you join us again for another instalment of Upstage Downstage.